Good afternoon, this is Quintus Curtius, and welcome back to the podcast. The title of this podcast is going to be Lack of Compliance with the Small Things Spells Big Trouble with the Big Things. And what do I mean by that? Well, I will explain. You know, when you've been engaged in business or any sort of productive enterprise for many years, as I have, I've been practicing law now for about 23 years in private practice as an attorney in the Kansas City area, you will start to notice patterns. Okay, and this applies not just to me. My trade happens to be law, but the same lesson would apply whether it might be plumbing or electric, the electric field, electrician, accounting, whatever profession that you might have or a person might have where they're actually interacting with people. Okay. But anyway, you start to notice patterns in dealing with people over many years. When you've seen hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, or maybe even thousands of people come and go through your office, you begin to notice patterns. And that is as it should be. That's expected because human beings are animals. We're rational animals, and we're creatures of stimulus and response. And we have certain behavior patterns. And one of those behavior patterns that you begin to notice is this. If a prospective client has difficulty following basic and reasonable instructions from you, then there are going to be big problems. They're going to be big problems. And the thought that came to mind to illustrate this point was a system that we use in our office. When we have a prospective client come in, we have him or her fill out a generic intake form. Before I meet with them, I have them fill out like a one-page generic intake form that just gives basic information about their name, address, phone number, email address, and just describes the basic outlines of the problem. The basic outlines, so that when you meet with the person, you can actually have something in front of you where you can, not only take notes on, but you're going to have a basic grasp of the parameters of the problem. Common sense, common courtesy. Now, the vast majority of people who will come to my office will fill this data sheet out without any problems, without any complaint, without any equivocation, without any issues. But there always is a tiny minority of people who, when you give them the form, they look it over and they'll maybe fill one or two things out and they'll leave it blank and they'll just sit there. And then when you come out to the lobby to get them, they'll give you this sort of doe-eyed look or deer in the headlights look and say, well, my problem is special. I wanted to explain it more to you in person, or some other excuse, which is their prerogative, of course. But my experience has taught me that anytime someone does that, whenever someone fails to comply with the basic rules of your office, with the basic rules of your business, it's a bad sign. It's a warning sign. Because what it says subliminally is that the person who is doing that is unwilling to recognize your authority, is unwilling to accept your guidance. And this is someone who thinks they know better than you do about what needs to be done. They're coming in with the wrong attitude, to put it short. Okay, to put it in a brief way of succinct way of saying it, they're coming in with a preconceived notion of what needs to be done. They're coming in with attitude. They're not letting you do your job. They're trying to usurp your authority and replace it with their own. They're trying to control the interaction. And look, I understand you have to make some allowances for people who are coming to an attorney's office. They're going to be upset. They're going to be stressed out. They're going to be at the end of their rope in some situations. But even with all that, I would never imagine not cooperating. Me personally, I would never go to a professional's office and even dream of just not answering questions or not complying. I would be at the point where, look, I'm just going to put myself at the mercy of this individual. I'm going to put myself in his or her hands, and I'm going to accept guidance. I'm going to follow the guidance that's given. And if I don't like it or if it doesn't work out, then I move on and I try somebody else or try some other option. But, there's always a small percentage of people who can't seem to do that. They want to guide the interaction. They want to control the interaction. They want to replace your guidance with how they want things to be handled. And that's always a bad sign. So you need to be attuned. You really need to be attuned to these little cues, these little psychological cues, these little revealing tells that people will broadcast that communicate their state of mind and communicate their attitude. So not filling out the basic information can be a very, very bad sign. Another bad sign can be any sort of resistance or argumentative interaction at the initial meeting. If someone is, you get the sense that they're challenging you, or they're pulling out their notepad and they want to take notes, or they have some, special, unique problem that is different from anything that anybody else in the world might have, and you want to say to yourself, no, you're not that different. Okay, we've seen this before. We know how to handle it. It's going to be up to you to take the guidance. It's going to be up to you to decide if you want to use me or not. Those little tells in the initial interactions are very, very revealing, and you have to be alert to them. You have to be alert to them if you want to be in business, or if you want to be in any sort of line of work where you have to interact with the general public, where you have to interact with clients, where you have to interact with people. These types of things are important, because they mean big problems. And I can tell you that every single time I've taken a client who showed signs of lack of cooperation with the little things, they've always been a problem. They've always been a problem down the road. I mean, it's so predictable, you could set your watch to it like clockwork, because they have some sort of feeling or attitude that they're special, that the rules don't apply to them, and that they can do whatever they want to do. They're problems. It usually spells a problem client. And, maybe you have your own. I'm sure there are people listening to this podcast who have their own stories or their own inputs of what are the warning signs of problematic people. But for me, what I'm going to, hang my hat on here is lack of cooperation in the initial meeting. Not filling out the initial form. When you meet with them, giving evasive answers, not disclosing the full parameters of the problem, bringing other people with them as foils to the initial meeting. Anything that looks like there's a lack of cooperation, that's always a bad warning sign. So take it under advisement. Take it for what it's worth. Take it under advisement. And learn to spot the tells, people. Learn to spot the tells. Learn to spot the cues of people who are not wanting to comply with your authority. Because remember, if it's your business, you're the one in charge. It's your business. It's not somebody else's business. Ultimately, you're the one that's going to have to answer for anything. You're going to have to answer to the landlord. You're going to have to answer to the tax man. You're going to have to answer for what you do. So you should not tolerate any of that sort of nonsense from people. If somebody doesn't want to cooperate, if someone doesn't want to comply, show them the door. You need to show them the door. And it really is that simple. So I'll leave it at that. And until next time, I'm Quintus Curtius. Have a good afternoon.